certain point liking to draw, and my mom liked to draw. And so we would, draw stuff together. One of the first things she remembered is it was like 2 or 3, something like that. I drew something on the wall, like a person on the wall. And she, of course, got mad about it, but a neighbor pointed out that I had all the features pretty much, like here's the head, here's the neck, here's the ears. At a certain point, I kind of realized I had some visual coordination between the hand and the eye and the, brain somewhere sitting in between them.
People look at Richard's work and they look at that kind of childlike, haphazard scrawl and they say, gee, this is effortless. This is fun, like sitting in a mud puddle and making mud pies. And that's exactly what he wants you to think. There's an amazing amount of sophistication behind that fun.
It's hard enough for any one artist, any one cartoonist, to make a niche doing one thing. Richard is one of those really rare people who is a brilliant caricaturist. He's a brilliant strip comedian. He is a brilliant panel comedian.
Richard's a cartoonist. He's someone whose talent is truly impressive. His work might seem like it's easy, but in fact, it's anything but.
I'm Caitlin McGurk, and I am one of the exhibit curators at the Ohio State University Billy Ireland Cartoon Library Museum, and I curated Richard's show for him. All right, here's your stuff. I'm here today to return all of Richard's artwork to him, now that the exhibit's over, and also to sort through all the pieces and see which ones he'd like to donate. Okay, no, this one is... We're gonna start the Richard Thompson collection as soon as I leave here. Christmas curmudgeons. Poor Toddler's Round Table. I love her hair. They look like little branches.
Yeah,
We can? We can have it?
yeah.
Yay! A winner. Did you always draw her face as a whole circle and then do the nose?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Hello there.
How are you? Hey, Richard.
Hey, how are you?
How are you doing?
Oh, I just looked at a stack of those before I came over here. They make me laugh every time.
Oh my god.
She's got the final of them.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. There's just so many of them that... Richard worked for us at the studio doing a lot of different illustrations for a bunch of different association magazines. This one, I cannot even remember what it was for. He wouldn't ask you a whole lot of questions about anything. I have no idea. I found this one in my basement the other day. He would just take the manuscript and leave and come back with 5, 6, 8 illustrations. Different whole ideas and approaches to something that could be about actuaries or automobile dealers. Richard could take anything and turn it into a piece of art. This one for electrical contractor, where he's turned the contractor and all the wires into a symphony.
Richard is a mild guy. You talk to him and you think this is the nicest guy in the world. But he is absolutely driven by the need to be not good, but great. He'd never say that, but you just see it in the work. I know how many drafts he has done to get one thing perfect.
He never settled for less in his artwork. There is a page in the Art of Richard Thompson. It has 8 sketches on it. They're of Brahms. In the end, I found 17 of these very similar sketches. The first one is probably the greatest caricature of Brahms ever done. There isn't an art director in the world that would not have been happy with the first Brahms, much less the 17th Brahms.
All right. Famous self-portrait with Alice. Was this in this house, this studio?
No.
The old one?
Yeah. I crammed everything in that studio.
Yeah.
Plus, twice as many books and twice as many CDs.
Then what you got now?
Anything outside of actually sitting in front of his drawing board was a shoulder shrug to Richard. Anything, including business.
While other competitors, they'd crawl over their grandmother to get a New Yorker cover, Richard is just oblivious to that side of life. He's in a class by himself, and he can let the art speak for itself.
This is like your fancy technique.
Yeah. It's oil paint. And you spray it in between with Krylon to make it dry. And poison yourself.
And poison yourself.
Yeah.
I told him that I thought he should be doing a weekly cartoon for the section that I edited, which was the Sunday Style section. And I took him out to lunch, and we had a great lunch. He's a charming man. There would be no strings, there would be no editing, and we'd pay him a substantial amount of money to do it. And Richard said, "Great, that sounds wonderful," and then I didn't hear from him for a year.
It's like I just kept chewing around on it, thinking, I don't know what I'm doing here. But so like a year later, I showed him some stuff. He said, I don't understand half of these, but I like them.
Richard's Poor Almanac. Who needs newspapers? This is one of my favorites of yours.
It's sort of a freedom that, I figure if nobody's really reading this, I can do whatever I want. Nobody's going to complain.
Richard's Poor Almanac had absolutely no structure. It was a download from the incredible mind of Richard Thompson. A taste of humanity.
Where did you get the idea to start doing these?
Deadline.
Oh, from Deadlines.
I was always pushing deadline on these things, thinking, what's going on this week? Is there anything newsworthy? Should I do another weather joke? Is, something good has got to happen. Or a cheese joke. What's it right in front of me? Bush was getting inaugurated that weekend. That Tuesday, I guess it was, he did not have an inaugural poem. I took like a whole string off the web, took a whole string of Bush malapropisms that he was famous for. He did something about put food on our families and make the pie higher.
We Republicans should stand for is growth in the economy. We ought to make the pie higher.
So I call it Make the Pie Higher, and each one was a series of quotes.
number of us would compare multiple versions of his almanac and say, now what the hell did he change from this version to that version, and why was it so important for him to go back? But, you know, it's like a dog's hearing. He sees things, he hears things that the rest of us don't.
And he can also write. There was one week when I proposed, instead of his illustrating my column, I would illustrate his column. And I spent hours on my pathetic illustration, which did run in the center of his column. Well, his column was about a Thanksgiving dinner he once had with his family, and it was spectacularly funny. I mean, it was, I hate to say this, even now, years later, better than anything I would have written that week. And suffice it to say that I didn't do it again.
What does that sign say?
Cul-de-sac. It's French. It means bottom of the bag.
This one is so gorgeous. This is what you used for Brian Walker's exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'm starting to hate it.
What is supposed to be going on up here?
It's just lost in clouds.
It's beautiful. You want to keep it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cul-de-sac is the summation of everything that came before. All of his great knowledge in the way of draftsmanship.
What I came up with was a family that lived in the suburb, which was, you know, it's like the high point of invention. It's like, whoa, nobody's tried this. Let's give this a shot, you know.
Cul-de-sac is conceptually brilliant, just absolutely brilliant.
What he succeeded in doing in Cul-de-sac was creating characters who were inherently funny. And as a guy who has dabbled in comic strips, I can tell you that is nearly impossible to do.
Are you gonna sit on your bed reading comic books all summer?
No, I'm gonna sit on my bed reading the same little Nero comic book.
Ugh, let me out of here.
He just is able to illustrate these really tiny moments in people's memories and capture an entire universe of somebody's childhood and boil it down into just a couple of panels in a way that I think is just, I mean, total genius.
There's a manhole in my neighborhood. My daughter, they get up there and they, Daddy, look, you know, I'm up on the manhole cover. Look at me. It's like, look what I can do. And we're walking down the street like some years later, and there's another kid with her mom doing the same thing. I thought, this is generations of children have jumped up on this thing. Look at me, Mommy.
The color on that sewer top is amazing.
I like the green, but the rest is...
The rest is what? It's so beautiful. I love how you did this. You're the only person I know that can do that kind of stuff so effortlessly. Coping for dummies?
Just as he's getting warmed up, he develops Parkinson's disease.
We can.
Never heard a cell of self-pity out of Richard Thompson. What he laments is that his characters had more to say. And by that we mean cul-de-sac. That's where his creative life was. That's where he had arrived. It's that the world that he created stopped there.
I redo that panel.
That panel. You still laugh at your own jokes. It's a good one. You're pretty funny, Richard.
So when I ask him, doesn't it suck that Parkinson's disease stole this from you? His response essentially is, yeah, my characters had more to say. Remarkable.
The Billy Island Cartoon Library Museum is the largest collection of cartoon and comic materials in the world. We have almost all cartoonists and comic artists represented. We wanted to show his fans some of the other work that they may not be familiar with. The real range that he had, we felt it would make an excellent exhibition.
They're discovering this thing for the first time, and it's like discovering America, you know? Like this whole body of work that's been there for such a long time, not as many people were aware of, but just like blows their mind.
There's something special about seeing the original art, seeing his actual line work and his shading, his compositions.
Having him here for the grand opening of this exhibit was really incredibly touching. Just sitting in the gallery, surrounded by people of all ages who are just discovering his work for the first time.
Suddenly there's a tsunami of appreciation and real affection and laughter.
That evening stood out because it was really an unbridled love fest. There were a range of top professionals in his field, and they all just adored Richard, and they were delighted to see the work come together for this purpose, and they kind of gathered around him. You know, he didn't have a lot of stamina at that point, but everyone was kind of kneeling at his feet and tugging at the hem of his garment and wanting an audience with the great man himself.
You know, on one hand, obviously it's sad that he has stopped working. On the other hand, look at the mountain of material that he has left.
I sometimes wonder if he subconsciously, or his brain someplace, he knew that his time was going to be limited as far as drawing is concerned, and painting and creating. There was so much work in so little time.
One of the consequences of Richard's utter lack of professional ambition is that there are a lot of potential audiences out there for his work who've never seen it. He could have gone to New York, he could have appeared on New Yorker covers, he could have been in fora that would have given him a much wider audience, and he was busy working on the art and never chased that down.
Personally, what I enjoy is to point out things and say, look, that's kind of funny, you know, something that nobody would notice, or, you know, make a connection that no one else would. It's just to point out humanity's, you know, flaws, either large or small. The optimism for me is just having an audience that's enjoying it, and the possibility that it can grow and can thrive in some way.